the last session. I think it's session 4 on day 2 of hearing stream 3, dealing with the rural zone. We've just completed the hearing of all submitters on the zone, and this is just a brief session to take a inventory on the matters that have arisen during the hearing, so that the reporting officer, Farrell, is able to report back to us in an effective and efficient manner. During the course of the last 2 days, Mr. Webb has been tabs on the questions that we have posed to the officers, and also the directions were posed in relation to the conferencing. So this is an opportunity for you to take us through that, and I think the best way to do that is to share your screen.
Yes. Just everybody see, it will disappear shortly, but
Let's go.
that up.
No.
Okay.
It's looking good.
How's that?
It's looking really good. Way better.
Cheeky.
We'll try not to interrupt too much, Mr. Harrell, but just take us through these.
So we're starting off with the general rural zone and rural lifestyle zone. So this is the first time I've read through these, so I'm reading through them at the same time as you. And jump in if I've captured this incorrectly. But starting off with other areas of highly productive land near Martinborough outside the Martinborough. Are there areas of highly productive land near Martinborough outside the Martinborough soils overlay? If so, supply a map showing these 2 overlays.
Yes.
Also, how do the highly productive land overlay and the Martinborough soils overlay in the PDP relate to the spatial extent of the rural special zone in the operative district plan?
Yes.
Provide a map showing the spatial extent. Subclause A, provide explanation of the source information for the 2 overlays. Clause I of that, sorry, my thumbnail's moved a little bit. Sorry, my thumbnail keeps jumping in the way of the words there. What is the original source and basis for the Wairarapa soil /LUC data in the Landcare database? When was this last updated?
Yes, so that's really in relation to the New Zealand LLR database. When was that undertaken?
Yes.
When was it last up? I think it's the NZLLR, New Zealand Land Resource Inventory. Or yes, right. I is it LRI?
Explain and show how the buffer concept has applied to mapping the spatial extent of the Martinborough soils overlay. Was 10 Nelsons Road, Martinborough, located in the special rural special zone of the operative district plan? Does the highly productive land overlay apply to this property? If so, what is the LUC? How distinguishable is this property from other properties in the Martinborough soils overlay?
Yes. So just going back to A1, there's two questions there, and I don't want them to be conflated. One's dealing with the highly productive land overlay, and one's dealing with the Martinborough soils overlay. So the sources of data for those 2 will be completely different, I imagine.
Yes.
Can
we split that into 2 separate questions?
Yes. The highly productive land, or the LUC database, relates to the New Zealand Land NZLR database. That was where the original work was done in the 1980s, and by departments such as Land Survey, DSIR, MWD, and largely has not been updated since that time, and continued to be rolled over as the prevailing data.
Okay. Hamish, correct me if we do cover this elsewhere, but I understand another question associated with that might be further explanation on the case law.
Yes, I'm hoping we come to that.
Yes, that's coming up.
Good.
Okay, I won't jump here then. So Hamish is currently that, but we can probably move into D if you're happy.
Yes, we are.
Prepare an updated Appendix 7 map showing all subdivisions requesting properties to be removed from the Martinborough Stores overlay.
Yes.
Specifically add 142 Dublin Road, that's Dublin Street Wine submission, to the map and update the full extent of 10 Nelson's Road.
Does that take us to a total of 4 or 5 that are submitted seeking to have their properties removed from the overlay?
Five, I believe, but I'll clarify that. Okay, moving into question 2. Describe the relationship between the objectives of the general rural zone and the above overlays, in particular, the highly productive land overlay. So clause A, what is the time frame for mapping highly productive land by Greater Wellington Regional Council and then including into the regional policy statement? What is the time frame for councils including this mapping in the proposed district plan?
Yes, and I think that's prescribed in the statute of 3 years.
How does a site/property specific soil/LUC assessment influence the spatial extent of the highly productive land overlay? Comment on the recent Dunedin/Otago Environment Court decision on this matter.
Yeah, not too sure what we meant in the first sentence of C, and the second sentence is probably a second.
I can maybe able to clarify that. So I think that the first sentence is where I guess it might be contingent on that environment court case, but where the LUC is say highly productive in terms of that the NPS mapping, if somebody was to provide an assessment, how would that be considered?
That's exactly right, actually.
So we've had submissions saying that our land is not productive, but it's all just wrong.
Yes.
That's I can clarify that, but
Yeah.
In other words, does a site specific is your ability for a site specific assessment the land use capability of the site does that provide a basis for overriding a LUC classification under the old system, or do we have to wait until the RPS maps are produced?
I can also maybe comment on if it doesn't override, what that might mean in a practical sense. So what that would mean in the consent process.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The relationship with clause 310 is also important there too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So clause D, what is the process for changing the spatial extent of highly productive land overlay shown in the proposed district plan mapping once the PDP is made operative? Does this require a Schedule 1 change process, plan change process?
I'm not sure how relevant it is. So just give me a chance. The Dunedin environmental case obviously talks specifically about highly productive land, I presume. But there's other case law that talks about making sure that any law takes into account the situation as it applies today. So, there's obviously going to be a bit of a potential conflict between these things. And the logical thing is that we're talking about a piece of land that's half an acre or half a hectare. Well, and nobody senses that a productive, you can't make an economic life out of that. So how does that fit in to the court decisions that have been occurred? We might need to look at that.
Maybe just to clarify on that, I guess I'm being a planner, I may not be able to go into the detail of court cases and the merits of them. I could only discuss the
facts.
Yeah, on the facts.
Yeah.
The panel could request legal advice.
We may do that, but we probably wouldn't do that until such stage as we've received your right of reply.
Yes.
It would be premature and maybe if you think legal advice would be helpful, you might want to formulate some questions. as well as looking at the Dunedin case, there's a subsequent case that references that case, and that's Save the Matai versus Nelson City Council, which was an interim decision that was made because of the Dunedin case. And that case had sent the parties away, particularly the two soil scientists, to determine what the appropriate land use capability of part of the site was. They decided that it was LUC 4,
Right.
as opposed to the LUC 2 that was derived from the NZLRI classification. And I'm receiving the judgment of the Dunedin case. The judge for the Kaka Valley, or sorry, the Save the Matai, gave a direction that it was no longer necessary for those two soil scientists to conference, and that it would be a moot point given the decision in the Dunedin case. So you might just want to have a look at that case. It's an interim decision that was released about 3-4 months ago.
Okay, that's very valuable to know. Okay, question 3. Provide property size analysis within the Martin resource overlay, including the distribution spatially. In light of this analysis, how does this relate to the appropriateness of a 40 hectare minimum lot size?
Self-explanatory, that one.
So clause A, for the Martin resource overlay, if there is an alternative activity status, for instance, restricted discretionary activity, for providing for a minimum threshold through still maintaining the ability to decline consent if future land use cannot be effectively managed.
And this will be subject to some conferencing, I think, this matter.
The more specific
Yes.
question coming down from conferencing.
Okay, question 4. Review wording of policy GRAS P5 subclause BI and whether traffic movements are within the wording of this clause.
Yes.
Should there be a comma added or removed?
This was in relation to the, who was the submitter?
It was the,
It was
Ensor,
yeah.
Mr. Ensor.
Does the MPS for highly productive land contemplate and have specific provisions for rural industry? Does changing the activity status of rural industry from discretionary activity to a restricted discretionary activity cause a policy misalignment with the MPS for highly productive land? For the Chamberlain Road area, did you want to comment on
No,
that?
that's not just affirming.
For the Chamberlain Road area, provide a summary of how this area was zoned in the operative district plan, draft district plan, and proposed district plan. Did you just throw one in there?
Yeah, well.
Oh, yeah, okay. So into 7 now. Clarify and confirm the spatial extent of areas sought to be rezoned rural lifestyle in the submission from Sally Whitehead, submission 61.
Is it submission 60?
61.001, and then there was Simon Coffey as well.
That's right.
They're a husband wife tag.
So I think it is the same.
Copy, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I did say that they were the same property, but okay.
I think it's here 60.
Yeah.
We want to get to specific.
Relates to the area of Boundary Road, Donalds Road, and the lower portion of Nora Tama Road and Marston.
Namutawa.
Thank you. So is this one, Hamish, have I just looked at that one, or is that to go? Is it, if I started to outline policy? Yeah.
Yes. It should be a space.
Okay. Outline the policy direction and the MPS highly productive land for rezoning land rural lifestyle to future urban. Is there any difference in the policy direction? So that's just, I think we might be,
Is there a duplication there, isn't there?
so 7 and the front part of now 9 is already covered. So I've just read that last sentence there.
Yes, first part of 9 is a repeat of 7.
It might just be a delay given Hamish is
I see.
updating over here, but. So question 10, follow up and respond to missing evidence from Dublin Street Wines Limited.
What was the missing evidence there?
There was some soil information, was it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
And would Ag first need to look at that?
Ag first haven't commented specifically on the Marnborough soils overlay.
Okay.
So if you direct it, yes, but at this stage there wouldn't be that intention.
Yes, well, yeah, follow up and respond to was the directive. Yeah.
11 and 12 relate to the conferencing. So the first conferencing would be between myself and Mr. Aburn for Wairarapa Wine Growers Association. If there is a specific subdivision rule for viticulture purposes in the Marnborough soils overlay, what would this metric be? What is the most appropriate activity status? What else is needed in the rule framework to limit non-viticulture land uses? Should it be a precondition to the most permissive activity status?
As opposed to a matter of discretion or control, yes. I think I saw Mr. Aburn nodding when I suggested that to him.
Yes, maybe just a question on this matter, which I think I already know the answer to, but this would primarily be related to a rule that would apply on the Martinborough soils overlay, as opposed to wider within the general zone.
Correct. I don't think we'd have scope to take it any wider.
That's right.
And I don't think the intention of the submitter was to take it any wider.
No. And then just a subclause there, consequential amendments, any definitions required and any changes to the policy framework related to those rules.
Particularly the policy framework, because it possibly is a gap in the policy to support that rule.
Okay, and then the second round of conferencing would be between myself and Mr. Enzor for Hogan. That would be to discuss the wording of policy GRUS P5 and rule GRUS R12 for managing the effects of noise from vehicles on roads associated with quarrying. Can the provisions be made more certain on the circumstances for assessing this type of effect? If so, provide suggested wording. Subclause B, is deposition of inert material and recycling material part of a quarrying activity as defined, or a separate land use activity? What is the most appropriate activity status for the deposition of inert material and recycling material in the general rural zone? Depending on the answer to this question, should this activity be covered in GRUS R12 or another new rule? And then again, consequential amendments, if any additional definitions are required and any changes to the policy framework related to those rules. Can the general rural zone be made more efficient and effective to better reflect the relationship between quarrying activities and highly productive land?
Quite a very broad question.
Yes, so just to clarify, that would be relates to as it's provided for in the national policy statement.
Okay.
So I believe the question there was Mr. Enzor had asked if there could be further direction for quarrying activities than what the MPS for highly productive land may have insinuated.
He was talking literally just extraction there and having to truck it off site then to do any form of processing. So
that's right.
The whole issue was about when you dig it out, what do you do with it then? And how do you manage it on site?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the last clause there, can the rural zone be made more efficient and effective to manage rural industry, including the most appropriate activity status?
Yes. And was this the Enviro NZ header?
This was still Mr. Enzel, so this was related to his relief that the current, what I'd recommended as going from discretionary to restricted discretionary, still didn't provide enough certainty for smaller scale operators.
Okay, yes, that's right.
So I believe your direction there was whether there's an alternative, whether that rule can be further narrowed,
Yep.
Or an additional rule that could provide specifically.
Yes.
Okay, agricultural aviation. So what are the applicable provisions for UAV? Would it be within the definition of agricultural aviation if a UAV is used for aviation purposes? Are UAV aircraft in this definition? And then clause there, note for the response, the Wairarapa Combined Public Places Bylaw contains a definition for aircraft, which includes UAVs, controls the use of UAVs in public places. And I might also just clarify there before responding to that the district plan only can manage the land use effects associated with the land and taking off of.
That's right.
Yeah.
So moving into relocatable buildings. Are the relocated building rules and standards in the general rural zone the same as recommended for urban zones? Are the same issues applicable in the rural environment as the urban environment? So consider further the environment court cases. So that's both the Central Otago and the South Taranaki on relocated buildings and whether there is a demonstrable issue in the Wairarapa of relocated buildings being left unfinished or not reinstated within a reasonable period. Subclauses to that, have bonds been taken for recent relocated buildings? And that would be under the controlled activity status currently. When bonds have been taken, have the councils utilised the bond that's been undertaken for the reinstatement and finishing of work?
Yes. There was some additional questions that I put to Mr. Barnett Thompson about the way in which the certification rule for the 12-month period would operate. And he was saying that he could see a case for a bond if that 12-month period wasn't honoured. So I wondered whether you could investigate the efficacy of that suggestion also.
Just picking up, you were particularly interested in the enforceability of.
Yeah, or how it would work. I mean, it may not be till the building consent stage. That was something that was able to be provided, given that it's a permitted activity rule.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know not sure what the question is. Maybe investigate the alternative suggestion from the submitter regarding only having a bond. Oh, yes, sorry, I've already typed that. Hang on, sorry. One step ahead of me.
That's what I've drafted.
Yes.
Submission.
Yeah.
Yes. So what he's saying is that if you don't, what Mr. Barnett Thompson was saying is if you don't meet that permitted activity performance standard, you're automatically an RDA. But I'm just wondering, that may be too late, given that the relocation could happen as a permitted activity status without the written certification.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe whether there's a need for an advice note saying that there needs to be written certification on the rule, or I'm not too sure. It's just about how that would work mechanically.
Yes. Just to clarify as well on these rules, we do have a rule previously that does talk about looking at the other zones, but just to note that these rules apply consistently currently across all of the zones.
Yes.
Okay. I can I'll be able to respond in relation to rural, but if you did want to have further response from the councils on or other officers on how that may impact their rules, I guess it might be contingent on the question.
We've heard from the urban areas and open space at Hearing Stream 2 when this first came up. I guess the issue for the panel is there a different issue in the rural zone than there is in the urban zones?
Yes.
Urban being residential and commercial. Is there different, is a receiving environment different that might necessitate a different rule?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that be to do with the issuing of a COC at the end? Would that cover that?
CCC.
Co-compliance certificate.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to understand is the current position of the council officers is that there should be a performance bond as a standard. I think that's the current situation, and the submitter have taken issue with that. They've taken issue with that in both the urban environments and the rural environment. And I'm just wondering whether this is an issue that is more pertinent to the urban than the rural, and in which case is there a case for different rules between the urban and rural environment?
Yeah.
So that might be it.
Question B will answer that, won't it?
or even 14 maybe the.
Well, the question B is a factual answer. The question I've just put is an evaluative, requires an evaluative response.
Mr. Chair, in terms of A, did you want that expanded a little bit? Like you've got, have bonds been taken for recent relocated buildings? If so, what is the amount? Because that might drive a decision point.
Yep. And, the starting point might be the table that I can't remember her name.
Rebecca Howardson
Provided, she gave 16 examples in the district of where bonds, but she wasn't able to tell me which were building consent bonds and which were resource consent bonds. Of maybe that none of them were resource consent bonds. Yeah, but yes, maybe the first part of that question is what type of bond? Were they a bond under the building consent or were they a resource consent?
I believe the only bond we take under building consents is a footpath
Vehicle crossing.
on vehicle crossing bond.
Okay. Yep.
I'll let Hamish clarify that one. So then in terms of all other evidence, provide further evaluation of the regional policy statement, plan change 1 decision and the reply statement. If further recommended amendments in light of this evaluation, consider fairness and natural justice matters and whether these issues should be considered further as part of hearing stream 13.
It might be hearing stream 14.
Yes, yeah, we can.
If 13 is the rezoning and we have then a wrap up hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
And then provide a response to any other matters presented in evidence at the hearing. Okay, moving into rural subdivision. Is the rule providing for subdivision for network? Is there a rule for providing for subdivision for network utility purposes? Do the highly productive land overlay or Martinborough Soils overlay rules apply in relation to this rule?
Yes.
Provide a factual or tabular or /tabular list of all parameters for subdivision provided for when the 40 hectare minimum size is not met, i.e. providing for rural lifestyle subdivision in the rural zone. For example, how the small lot rule applies. Also, how does the surplus dwelling rule work? In addition, how does the balanced lot work?
I was certainly getting a little bit confused myself about those. So if you can simplify the explanation in a tabular or factual list, that would be useful.
Yes.
I'm very conscious that the scope for these carve outs is much more constrained under the proposed plan than it was under the operative plan, I think, as a general statement.
Yes.
Yes.
And then into question 20. Evaluate whether the rural lifestyle zone and general rural zone subdivision approach could coexist in the Masterton district. What are the planning reasons for only adopting one approach for rural subdivision and not both? And associated with that, provide maps of the spatial distribution of lots less than 4 hectares in the Masterton district. Also include maps in Carterton and South Wairarapa districts.
Yes. Now you've sort of done that already, haven't you, with
Appendix
9,
Yeah.
7,
9.
9.
Yeah. And that covers 8 hectare allotments too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes. Just whether you need to add to that in any way.
I can.
McGrady had some.
Yes, I can expand on that and maybe just clarify some of the other parameters. Highly productive land, how that overlaps the coastal environment line, other things like that, and even a distance from the major service centres that may be useful for the panel to consider.
That first question in 20, that's essentially whether rural lifestyle zone and rural sub 4 should apply in tandem. That's the question there, isn't it?
Yes. I wonder with that question whether we should leave that broad in terms of the subdivision approach in Masterton, given that may be one of the options, but not the only option, I guess.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Would you prefer that specific question, and I can then look at the other options as well?
Well, I'm conscious that of the 9 but 5 principal requests for rezoning from rural to lifestyle, some of them won't have their final evidence presented until hearing stream 13. And you might want to reflect on those matters before you come to a final conclusion on the question 20.
Yes. In fact, Hamish may have anticipated that and worded it as such. So,
look, why don't we just leave 20 as it is, but I'll leave it up to your discretion how and where you answer that.
Okay, thank you. So subclause B, provide yield calculations under either approach. Include yield calculations for submissions requesting rezoning properties in the rural lifestyle zone, for example, Gary Daniel. Consider the impact of any overlays on yield, e.g. 40 hectare minimum in the coastal environment overlay.
Yes.
Could we also add to that I don't know if you're going to have it in there, but instead of half hectare lots, the effective minimum of 1 hectare lots in the rural lifestyle zone?
Yes,
That's pretty important. That
Yes.
one. Yeah.
As far as yield goes, and it raises another question, Mr. Horan. That's that very last point that Ms. McGrady made about what's the test here.
yes.
The test is giving effect to the MPS and going back to the strategic objectives and the policies. She was questioning where does the yield test come in?
Yes.
Some statutory explanation of the relevance of the yield test would be useful.
Something I also picked up that I just wanted to clarify with you, whether you'd like me to respond further to, was she had questioned the demand, the inferred demand that I'd relied on for the 10 years.
Yes, it is, but that was part of her questioning of the yield, the relevance of the yield too. Yes, so you can deal with the two together.
Okay.
And maybe just add in that demand component, Hamish, yeah.
And then could you also then add that if we went to a minimum of 1 hectare minimum, what is the point of having a rural lifestyle zone?
Yes, I guess just taking.
Because that's the logical question, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess.
That comes under 20, yeah.
Yes. And it may be, as the chairman's pointed out, it may be we need to wait until hearing stream 13 to make that decision. I may be able to make an observation based on the current size recommended, but I can't predetermine it at this stage. And then clause C, as an alternative, comment on the option Lucy McWilliams, evidence of smaller lots with 1 or 2 lots of 0.5 hectare with a minimum balance of 40 hectares. The rule could further be dated, such as sub R4, to ensure one bite of the cherry. Suggest an activity status of restricted discretionary activity with matters of discretion around the productive capacity and rural amenity and character. This would allow councils to assess any applications on its merits and the ability to decline consent if appropriate.
As the one bite of the cherry, is that the either or situation?
I think that may have been referring more to a grandparenting clause of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it can't. Yeah.
That would be if your property was 40 or 41 hectares at this date, you can subdivide, say, 2 allotments.
One time only.
Yes.
Hey,
And then provide a response to any other matters presented in evidence at the hearing.
have we missed anything?
I have one question. Did we talk anything about the effect of subdivision with the 20 hectare freshwater plan scenario?
With the farm water plans?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a specific. I would be capturing that in that final point. But yes, I will be responding to Mr. Madden's
Yeah.
suggestion there.
It was quite a valid point, I thought, as to.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess on that, there was a inferred question to Mr. Maddich of could you apply a different allotment size to LUC or highly productive land and non-highly productive land? Would you like me to comment specifically on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it'd be useful.
But,
I think it
just
would
give us
be.
too much information sometimes is not a bad thing. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not all the time.
Yeah, but not all the time. I may regret answering that.
You enjoyed my Section 42A report, so.
No, you don't.
Well, as our learned friend, MC Hammer said, sometimes you just got to break it on down.
Yeah.
Do you want to something about composting?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. So just to clarify, Mr. Ross's question on composting and whether I should, well, I can reconsider
Another rule,
that.
another whole.
I just don't want to lose those questions under 21.
No, that's right. So
Okay.
I think Hamish may be updating as we speak, but
Do we need to record on 21?
Yep. Now,
Ask from 15.
I guess
For the record?
Solitaire was just noting that should we, for the record, note the question you'd asked to Mr. Maddich on the other proposed district plans? What?
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
he's required to deliver that information by the end of the week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will we get that information pretty quickly? I think that's.
Well, it's
The end of the
With
We don't-
operations.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I like to digest things, Alice.
Yeah, we-
Don't just-
That could also.
That information will go to the webpage.
Yeah.
Ruth will put that information under presentations at the hearing.
Yep.
I was surprised.
I'm not against.
Digestible. Hagfish I'm still waiting for.
But we'll be certainly interested in your observations on that response from Mr. Maddich.
Yes. No, I can
As it relates to
respond to that.
what we're really looking for is how have other councils dealt with the directive and the MPS HPL, particularly when it comes to minimum allotment size in the rural zone. That's a question for Mr. Maddich.
Yes.
One of the was raised the point that under the productive land that they would have to do an economic assessment to change, but then to say oh, we don't accept your evidence, there's no economic, there's no reverse onus there as well. Do we need to perhaps look at something on that?
Oh, that, yes, so.
Somebody says, no, when, who's the consultant?
So Ag First hadn't.
Yeah, when Ag First says, no, that doesn't apply.
Yeah.
There's no evidence to go with that from the economic
I
perspective
think
as well. So
they're also going to be speaking at the rezoning hearing, that they may produce that evidence hearing stream
Yes.
in relation to that.
And we
parcel
haven't
of land.
captured it here, but we've given a soft direction that Hamish and the agri research consultant and the planner and Mr. Views meet together and work out what the terms of reference are for that additional information.
okay.
But I don't think we
Does it
can
apply
capture
to, it apply to a number of the submissions, of course?
Yes.
that. Okay, the question, oh, sorry, is there something?
I guess just on that point, I will also in my writer reply just clearly outline the methodology that Ag First had used. There had been questions on
Yes.
their economic analysis. So I can confirm the economic analysis that they relied on.
Yes, certainly Sarah Martin, Janine Brown questioned that issue.
Yes. Their economic analysis was highest and best use. That was all she said.
I can
Really blunt, told.
I guess I'll respond to that further in the writer reply, but that is based on they also are not economists, so they've relied on documentation, so tools and evidence that they could give to say this is what a economically viable unit would be, or that's the return.
Yeah,
None of it's based on realism.
yes.
Well, you wonder.
There was a couple of pieces of missing evidence. The one was that we've captured already the Dublin Street. Was there also something from the Selby Neils and Angus Laird that we missed? Or was that just the summary statement?
Hello?
Selby Neil.
No, that.
It was just about mapping accuracy
Yeah.
and the amount of soil and
They have provided already the updates.
And Mr. Shaw was very particular about the environmental of water and wastewater going down to half a hectare.
And I can respond to that with that, and I'll also respond to Greater Wellington.
It's linked to what Brad wanted to say as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm conscious there's quite a bit of impost on you. What's a reasonable expectation in terms of delivering the right reply on that to the extent that you're able to address all of those matters?
Monday?
No pressure.
I would ask for maybe a small extension, maybe an extra 5 working days, so 20 working days as opposed to 15. So that should provide me enough time to.
The reason I ask is that the panel has tentatively got some deliberations on hearing stream 3.
Yeah.
Scheduled for the 18th and 19th of November.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how that would fit in with that.
What date are we at?
We're at now at the 15th of
Yeah.
that'd be just be your 20.
it'll be the 20th.
So, yeah, I'll just check my calendar.
Over.
Have you guys got some
13th.
between?
Yeah, she'll be the
You've
4th.
got some towards the end of this month?
Yeah.
Well, they've been cancelled.
Working days.
No.
So are we better to then delay our operations until Monday, the 25th and Tuesday, the 26th of November?
21st and
What
22nd.
day did you say?
I don't want to
think
hold
we have.
everyone up if they want to hit the road.
To be confirmed.
They could still do that. It's 14th
What we should do though, unless there's any
I'm
further.
away, solid.
on the 18th.
October.
I'm away.
No, we
We-
might start
Just
again.
before we, unless there's any further
Yeah.
questions or clarifications from Mr. Earl, I think we can adjourn the hearing.
Close that.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing further.
Yes.
And we quite rightly have finished with a karakia.
We got deliberations.
Hidden behind a whiteboard.
We just oh, do you want to?
Well, we got the Mary Pepper Zone coming up.
Want to lead us off, Roy?
Yeah,
What?
Mary Pepper Zone coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, everybody.